Hey guys, so today marks a historic day, even though I cannot say that it's a good historic day. Honestly speaking, the last few months haven't been great months either, since we have an active war going in Europe, so there's that. But what exactly did occur today that it made it a historic day? Well, a couple of things actually, but one thing at a time. So let's start with the thing which set it all off. Obviously, it's the war in Ukraine, which has been raging on since February, and that's basically the root of all evil. But what exactly did occur today? The first thing is not a direct occurrence which happened today, but it's a consequence out of it. As many of you, or maybe not many, but all of you have heard, the Nord Stream pipelines have been destroyed. And basically, what the Nord Stream pipelines were was the last connection of Russia to Europe in a trading sense. Like, there is no business going between Europe and Russia anymore because of the sanctions and other reasons, whatever. And those pipelines were basically the last connection which was still intact. And with the destruction of those, this is no longer valid either. So, what else did occur today? Well, the most important aspect today was the fact that Russia officially annexed 4 regions of Ukraine and declared them into its own territory, those regions being Kherson, Zaporozhye, Luhansk, and Donetsk. Even though I have a clear opinion on those annexions, which is slightly different from the traditional opinion which is being held in the West, since we have a very linear debate going here that those referendums were forced, the people were forced to vote, they only had one choice. But somehow all the people fail to mention that those people who voted for the referendum have been in active war zone not since February, but for 8 years. But I don't want to go into much detail into that because that could be a topic for a whole other video. Anyways, Putin signed a decree declaring those territories as the Russian state. This means that the war raging in Ukraine now is no longer solely on Ukrainian ground. This could also mean that if Ukraine attacks those new territories, Russia could consider it as an act of war against Russia, which also would mean that the response which would occur would be a lot different to the response that we have been seeing in the war right now. Because right now, Russia is not seeing this thing as war, mind you. They are seeing it as a special operation. But if somebody attacks Russian soil, it becomes a war. And this means that it could trigger the nuclear decree of Russia, which allows it for first preemptive nuclear strike if Russia sees its existence threatened. So keep that in mind. So, what exactly did happen afterwards? Well, after Putin gave his speech, to which I will talk a little bit later, Zelensky wrote a decree to the NATO asking them to be accepted as a part of the NATO. Promptly after that, Stoltenberg held a press conference in which he said that this is not possible because all members of the NATO state have to agree to accept Ukraine into NATO. By doing that, he basically avoided directly saying no, because him saying no would be seen as offensive in Ukraine. But luckily, he did so, because if we did that, that would basically the declaration of World War III. Even though you could argue that we are already fighting against Russia in some extent, we're at least not officially directly involved in that war zone. Even though you could argue that with our surveillance working strictly for Ukraine, us having UAVs there and everything, helping them directly, or heavy weapons and whatnot, you could already see us as a party in the war. But I don't want to debate about that. So, what else did happen? The speech of Putin basically declared what we all were expecting. He basically said that Russia no longer sees its values being on par with those of the European Union. He made a few examples, especially going into the more traditional values, proclaiming that Europe values traditional values less than the values of the LGBTQ community, and that he doesn't see that as a healthy, let's say, relation partner for Russia, since he doesn't see that community as a healthy aspect either. I don't want to comment on that because, well, that's his opinion and whatever. And, anyways, basically, what his speech marked was the end of an era in which we had peace and prosperity in Europe, even though you could argue the era of peace in Europe ended with the start of the war in Ukraine, but that again is another topic. So, what's the consequence of all the things that occurred today? Well, one thing, Russia cancelled all its relation to the West, or you could say that this is my opinion, but I guess a lot of people will agree with me with that Russia basically declared that it no longer has any interest in working with the West and that it will look for its partners in different parts of the world. Another thing to watch out for is the fact that the war could also be called a war in Russia now, and that would be leading to an escalation of the war in every regard. And the final thing is that for Europe and Germany in particular, the pipelines or cheap gas from Russia is no longer an option, since it's no longer possible to receive gas from Russia. So it means that whatever the winter brings to us, we are stuck with it because we don't have a way out. And that's about everything I wanted to say for today's rant. I hope you find that information helpful and enjoyable. Have a great day.